Esoteric Encyclopedia of Eternal Knowledge by Vernon Howard, starting with L. Land of Lightning. Imagine a house in a stormy region. It is struck by lightning and damaged. The house shares the responsibility for being struck. Its very existence in a stormy land contributed to the disaster. The lightning was attracted to the house because the house was there. It is possible for the house to avoid the punishing bolts of lightning. It can be moved to another location, to a land where lightning is not a surrounding threat. So here is the answer to man's wailing outburst. Why does life give me one blow after another? The blows come because we live in the psychological land of blows. We get what we get because we live where we live. This book speaks frequently about changing our mental residence and about uplifting our level of being. You can see why. These actions take us out of the land of lightning. Law of attraction. The simple wish to understand that which you do not at present understand is a powerful force. Release it fully. Let it work for you. That is the purpose of psychic energy, to revitalize you. So release it right now, whether working with others or all by yourself. A husband and wife asked for and received an appointment with a teacher of real knowledge. The husband said, "We wish to understand why certain things happen to us." The wife added, "This will help us attract only those events which are worthwhile." The teacher explained, "You attract whatever corresponds to your own nature. Like attracts like. This is natural law. Tigers associate with other tigers. Doves fly together. Change what you are, and you will change what you attract. Self-change starts by seeing yourselves as you really are, not as you imagine you are. Work together with these ideas. Lay down the weapons. Travellers during the Middle Ages found food and rest at various castles along the way, but a requirement was made for entrance. Anyone wishing to cross the drawbridge and enter the castle had to leave his weapons with the guard at the gate. No one could enter with hostile weapons such as swords and crossbows. When hearing this illustrative story in class, Gary commented, "The point is clear enough. We cannot carry weapons of antagonism and aggression into the castle of truth. I think that is one of our greatest problems. In the first place, we are so unaware of how much hostility we have towards the very castle, which offers relief from the long and weary road. What we fail to see," added Marilyn, "is that weapons are unnecessary in the castle. To be inside means you have won, so what is there to fight?" Marilyn concluded, "How to lay our weapons down, that is what it is all about." Learn to distinguish. We cannot gain true profit as long as we assume we are already making it. Take mechanical religion, which is a tragic loss. Mechanical religion appears to provide comfort and security, while actually increasing anguish. Rituals, ceremonies, vain repetitions, trite preachments are stiff prison bars. Living from such memorized acts is like freezing in the snow while insisting it is warm, because yesterday's weather forecast said it would be warm. Truth frees a man from all this by revealing that mechanical religion has all of the words, but none of the music. Guidance in this area can be gained by consulting the following list regularly. We must distinguish between the mechanical and the conscious, the theatrical and the real, the forced and the spontaneous, the memorized and the new, the nervous and the relaxed, the useless and the beneficial. Lectures. A man once attended a truth lecture. On his way home he complained, "That teacher is not clear." But he returned for the second talk. When walking home he reflected, "Perhaps it is my own mind that is not clear." He went back for a third lecture. While returning home, he smiled and affirmed, "I see clearly that the teacher was clear all the time." A person is attracted to esoteric truths only when seeing something valuable in them. He sees something valuable in them when also seeing something valueless in himself. He sees something valueless in himself only when he is utterly tired of playing the self-deceiving game. The light is always trying to break through the wrappings around life. Are we consciously aiding the light's breakthrough, or are we unknowingly opposing it? Lessons about change. A teacher asked his class, "If unhappiness exists in your mind, do you try to change your neighbour?" No. What do you change? The mind. If confusion exists in your emotions, do you try to change the social system? No. What do you change? The emotions. Asked the teacher, "What lesson am I trying to teach?" A student volunteered, "You are instructing us in the need to work in the right place." A person suffering from himself gains nothing but more anxiety by trying to change others. Unfortunately, blaming others for our grief is a hardened human habit. Only self-work can change the self. Let nature succeed. Human beings belong to so many things, to clubs and to other people, and to religions and philosophies. Ask yourself, from a higher viewpoint, do I really belong to anything? You and I do not belong to anyone or anything, nor does anything in the exterior world belong to us. You and I belong to ourselves, to our true nature, to our own essence. As awakened men know, this is true success. Great men are the true men, the men in whom nature has succeeded. Henri Frédéric Amiel. So you see, you do not need anyone on your side. You yourself are all you need. No other human being can be on your side anyway, except as his awakened essence touches your essence. You need only your own kingdom within. This is not a state of isolation and loneliness. It is self-completion at last. Level of understanding. When losing the way when driving on a trip, we do not become angry at ourselves or others. We look at a map to discover just where we went wrong. This is also the right procedure when straying off the road of life. Find out where you went wrong by studying your psychic maps, then make correction. Nothing is simpler than that. The trouble is that we complicate things with pointless reactions. The psychic maps you are studying in this book will pull you towards simple and corrective reactions. As a step toward greater self-knowledge, you urge us to see how little we know about ourselves. How can this be done? Realize that you express your level of understanding in everything you do and feel and say. Every man lives his level, for he has nothing else to live. Now look at the results of living out your level of understanding or misunderstanding. What has it given you? Contentment or regret? Command or worry? Once seeing your level, work to raise it, which will raise results. Lights ahead. Picture a motorist whose car breaks down in a wilderness. As night falls, a furious storm batters the car. The motorist feels fairly safe, but also feels trapped. Peering through the storm, he sights distant lights which promise safety and assistance. But his mind is divided. One part of it urges him to dare to reach the lights, but another part argues in favour of the comforts of the car. For a while, his mind fights between the two choices. Finally, he realises what must be done. He leaves the safety of the car and struggles towards the lights. Every time he falls, he wishes he'd stayed in the car, but there is no turning back. He battles forwards until finally reaching the lights and safety. This illustrates a particular point in spiritual progress. When first choosing the lights of truth, everything seems to get worse instead of better. It is not really worse. It is an awakening awareness of how badly off we really were. This is a state of honesty and health. The lights are just ahead. Lights along the path. The one way to begin to work for yourself instead of for nothing is to see what it means to work for yourself. A person who thinks there is no alternative to his surrounding pressures is simply thinking incorrectly. A healthy person without opposition in himself does not have opposition outside himself. The upward path consists of the daily revelation of something about yourself to yourself. An independent searcher asks many questions, but accepts only those answers which make him think for himself. When solving the mystery of time, you will be able to do right now what you used to think would take years. A denial of what you want can build great nobility if you permit it to banish the fear of not getting what you want. You will never go wrong by considering any difficulty as only an absence of understanding which study can correct. Living truth. A truth is understood only when it favourably influences what the individual does, what he is. He must not only know the truth with his mind, but must live it with his whole being. Everyone must guard against taking mental knowledge of the truth for living it out in daily behaviour. An honest glance at the actual inward condition is enough to prevent a mistake here. Speaking the phrases kindly attitudes and mental health is not the same as living with those qualities. You want a way of life, not a pill to be taken when desperation dictates. You want a freely flowing day requiring no stops for pills. You don't want just the words. You want the lasting inspiration of the music. Lofty world. There is a way to live in which we are not indebted to anyone. In this lofty world, we do not anxiously seek comfort or support from anyone, nor do we fear the loss of any benefits at present received from others. This is that rare independence known by those who have endured the quest to the very end. They have freedom by understanding the true nature of freedom. They have command because they place what is true above what is sparkling. Just to ask intelligent questions of ourselves opens the door a bit wider. We can ask, which indicates dawning wisdom? To chase every attractive sight, or to realise how easily these attractive sights turn into trouble? Or we might inquire, which makes sense? To tensely and endlessly defend myself against hurt feelings, or to end hurt feelings altogether by understanding their false power? Look for the lesson. Look for the valuable lesson in every unpleasant experience. It is there. The very experience indicates a need for the lesson. You would not have the experience unless you needed the lesson. A man on the right side of a bridge does not stumble on that bridge. We stumble simply because we are still crossing. We take the next step across as soon as we have learned the present lesson. A lesson learned is out of the way. We learn the lesson simply by not refusing it. Refusal can take 1,000 forms, some obvious, some subtle. Defending a false position is refusal, as is an attempt to shift one's own responsibility onto others. Each of us must detect his or her particular refusals and refuse them. Do you know people whose faces grow tight and hostile at the slightest criticism of their ways? They reject the lesson. Do you know others who never give thought to anything higher than a football? They are ignoring gold. That is not our way, not anymore. Loss and fear. Please supply an example of unconscious and injurious inner division. People often say the opposite of what they really feel. For instance, Anyone needing to convince others of how important his day has been has had an empty day. Many people seem to have knowledge of religion and psychology, yet their personal lives are empty. Why? Because surface knowledge is not enough to change human nature. Everyone knows that violence breeds violence, but men still attack each other. A willingness to give up egotism must accompany knowledge. Please say something about the fear of loss. Become fully conscious of your fear of losing someone or something. Let the healing facts you have gathered go to work on that fear. Then, if and when the loss comes, fear will not come with it. Love truth. Gordon, who had been a doctor for 30 years, spoke up during the discussion period of the class. Please show us, he requested, where we are making a mistake in our plans for self-awakening. We can then work to correct it. Have you ever noticed the strange pleasure gained by falling into wild emotions, as when arguing? Have you ever observed the peculiar enjoyment you find in feeling gloomy? Have the courage to give up the false pleasure of negative emotions. Cease to secretly cherish self-torture, and you can never feel tortured. This requires constant progress in self-knowledge. You must honestly see how much you love your negative feelings. Then you must love truth more, which breaks the power of self-injury. M. Maintain definite aims. It is important to keep yourself with definite aims all the time. Here is why. Suppose you make it your clear aim to not speak impulsively today. Later, you catch yourself making an impulsive remark. You are now aware that you did not keep your aim, and it is this awareness which is pure gold for you. If you had made no aim, you would not be aware of breaking it. Success or failure in keeping your aim is not the important point. Awareness of yourself in action is what you are after. Your aim in life is not to win, but to watch. But watching is winning. A student asked his teacher, "What if an individual is unable to reach the source of help he needs, such as a class with a self-awakened teacher?" The student heard, "Both the class and the teacher are merely ideas in your mind. You are in class every second, whatever you do. Also, the teacher is always present, for the teacher is your own essence. The kingdom of heaven is within." Make connections. Imagine a schoolboy having the date of 1848 in his mind, but who is unable to connect it with the historical event of that year. He searches his mind until seeing the connection between the date and the event, the discovery of gold in California. That is how your psychic system expands its power. By connecting one fact with another, a third force appears, that of new understanding. So make connections. Fresh insight follows. Perhaps you know of your uncertainty towards life. That is one fact. Now remember what you have learned about uncertainty. Remember that it is held in place by antique notions, including the notion that you must follow society's definitions of success. Know that you need not follow the definitions which keep the very definers outwardly successful, but inwardly terrified. That is a second fact. Feel the truth of both facts at once. Certainty will replace uncertainty. This new and real certainty is a supreme king who pleads with no one for anything. Make up your mind. Once and for all, make up your mind to change the kind of human being you are. Make up your mind to no longer live within walls. This will arouse screaming protests from the inner slave masters. They will not easily yield their power over to you. Be encouraged by hearing these protests, for they are your first insights into the false power of the slave masters. They get frightened quite easily, and you're beginning to frighten them. Hypnotized human beings have no knowledge of these facts, for they have never questioned their walls. They lived within concealed resentment and terror. They may live like this, but you cannot. You have places to go. Here is something to remember every day. Nothing can withstand the audacious intention. I refuse to let go until I understand what this is all about. Man is self-divided. Man yearns to get rid of his pains, and yet loves his pains, for they make him the centre of his own attention. He seeks help in finding himself, and yet rejects help, because his vanity will not admit his misery. He wants to succeed in public affairs, and yet does not want to succeed, for he dimly senses the emptiness of public praise. His agonizing contradictions are the result of his dualism, of his inner split. In other words, there are two opposing forces within him, one dominating him one moment, and the other taking him over the next moment. These forces cease to act as opposing forces when he stops choosing one side against the other. For example, when fully realizing the folly of human praise, he no longer chooses it, and is therefore free from anxiety of not hearing public applause. Above his dualism is oneness. Oneness must be his single aim. Man's chief problem. From the viewpoint of higher thought, what is man's fundamental difficulty? Man's chief problem is his mistaken belief that he possesses a separate identity, an individuality that is apart from the universal whole, from the all. This false identity is like putting on one costume after another until the person believes he consists of the costumes he wears and the roles he plays. These wrong beliefs put him into conflict with both himself and others, for every label has an opposing label. A man believes he must present an impressive appearance to others. He is now afraid he will not be impressive. Reality is above all such labels and divisions. A real man never needs to prove himself. Therefore, he is always at ease. Marvellous revelation. A crisis occurs when reality challenges unreality. A problem arises only when truth confronts a false human position. The challenged person usually runs away from the crisis, thus losing the opportunity for healing through the replacement of falsehood by truth. Reality aids the challenged person by urging, do not run away. Stay right where you are. Look at your crisis until seeing that you are the very crisis itself, that your own state of mind is the precise difficulty. Do this, and a marvellous revelation appears. You see that you are also your own solution. Assistance often comes from the right word at the right time. One agitated man was bluntly told, "Stop bothering yourself." Receptive to help, he took it as a needed lesson. Brief self-examination revealed himself as the author of his agitation, which lifted him one more step above his old ways. Maturity and behaviour. We are urged to place spiritual matters first. What does this mean? You can talk about truth and then you can talk about bread, but you cannot talk about bread and then talk about truth. Understand truth and you will understand bread. Why does talk about a united world remain only talk? Division begins in an individual mind and spreads itself throughout the world. Now, where must non-division begin if we are to unite the world? May we have a clue for judging a person's actual level of psychic maturity. Never estimate his maturity when things are going well with him. Anyone can smile in a calm sea. Watch his behaviour during a small or large crisis. That is what he is really like. I want to be happy. There is a part of you perfectly capable of straightening out another part of you, That should make you permanently happy. Meadow and canyon. A flock of sheep once lived in a grassy meadow which was watered by a winding mountain stream. The sheep were tended by an alert and considerate shepherd. Living close to nature, which blended with their own nature, the sheep passed their days in contentment. But over the months, the sheep grew careless towards themselves. Disobeying the shepherd's instructions, they wandered off into a dry and treeless canyon, which was closed at the opposite end. After a few days of hardship, they began to blame the shepherd for their unhappiness. Then came a second phase in their thinking. They hypnotized themselves into believing that the canyon was the grassy meadow and that the meadow was the dry canyon. Aware of how they had deluded themselves, the shepherd urged the flock to return to the meadow where everything would be clear once more. But the suspicious sheep shouted, "Ah, so that's your trick. You want this meadow for yourself." Mechanical thought. Watch how your mind operates. Awareness of mental movements is rewarding and fascinating. Notice how it rolls along by associations. Hear the word candy and the mind associates the word with a pleasurable feeling, exclaiming, "Candy tastes good, I want some." Meet a person who once hurt our feelings and the reaction leaps up, "Danger, be careful." Associative thought is mechanical. It races forward all by itself like a driverless truck hurtling down a steep street. It captures the individual without his knowledge, carrying him to unpleasant places. Personal difficulties can be traced back to the domination of the person by associative and mechanical thought. Take someone who declares, "I must win over my rival." He may wish to win an argument or a game or an election. He wishes to win and even lose because in either case he gets a false feeling of life and he is still on the level where he loves fiery feelings. Now he is in conflict with himself and others, all because he was carried off by mechanical thought. An understanding of the mind enables us to live consciously instead of mechanically. Medals. A deeply dissatisfied man looked around for ways to change his fortunes. An interesting idea jumped out of his mind, so he went to work on it. He designed an impressive medal on which was printed "Hero." When wearing it in public, he was instantly applauded and honoured by everyone. But the thrill soon wore off for the man. Also, he noticed that fewer and fewer people were being impressed by the medal. So he designed a new medal on which was printed "Scholar." To his great delight, the admiring throngs returned to cheer the new identification. But this attraction faded also, forcing the anxious man to create a third medal. On this one was printed the word "Leader." When displaying it outdoors, he was loudly acclaimed as a great commander. But somehow the man sensed that at no time was he ever really a different kind of person. The medals had no power to cover his haunting dissatisfaction. So in his secret thoughts, he asked over and over, "What will really make me different?" Mental health in action. Whoever plunges bravely into self-discovery may feel at first that he is worse off than before. He may cite negative traits, causing disappointment or even shock. This is because he sees for the first time various traits which controlled him without his knowledge. This surprise comes to every earnest seeker. It is normal and necessary. It is also good news. It is genuine advancement. It is mental health in action, for it includes the curing medicine of honest self-facing. Nothing but good can ever come from these disturbing revelations, regardless of how it feels at the present. It is like the temporary awkwardness you feel when learning a new game. Your very awareness of incapacity becomes an incentive for winning capacity. Mental imprisonment. It is precisely because an awakened man knows how the mass mind operates that he does not talk to everyone about the way out of mental prison. Most people do not even realise they are imprisoned, so why listen to someone who talks about the way out? To whom does the enlightened man speak? To those who have peered beyond the pretty curtains to see the prison bars which have always confined them. Only prisoners who know they are prisoners are interested in escape plans. They are the ones who get out. If you are ever fortunate enough to hear a public talk by someone who knows what he is talking about, do not think of yourself as part of the audience. Pay no attention to the attitudes and reactions of others. Let the speaker talk to you personally, individually, just as if you were chatting as good friends in your home. It is the personal touch which makes the personal healing. Mental magic. Gregory was never hesitant about asking questions in class. This helped other students who were too shy to speak up. One evening, Gregory said, "It is good news to hear that an awakened man thinks in an entirely different way from the rest of us. As you have pointed out, we always think in the same old mechanical ways without even being aware of how dull and repetitious we are. But what about the mental magic of a real man? How does he see things differently and clearly? Suppose he passes a stranger on the street who has a gloomy face and manner. One glance at that stranger reveals 1,000 facts to the real man. He knows that gloom never exists in isolation, but must be accompanied by dozens of other negative traits, like a gang of hoodlums. Therefore, the real man knows that the stranger lives from sour outlooks and accusing attitudes, that he entertains illusory hopes for a better future, that he nervously feels himself at the mercy of people and events. This mental magic can be practiced endlessly by anyone who becomes a real person. Method for advancement. There is a simple but dynamic method by which anyone can advance swiftly. When sensing you are doing something right, do it with increased frequency and energy. Today, when meeting a problem or crisis, deliberately and persistently make the choice to understand it rather than fight it. Start by seeing how your own mental operations might have contributed to the problem, but place the wish to understand the condition before the wish to battle against it. Do the same thing tomorrow, but with increased force and energy. Increase your effort even more the next day. Nature has given you a vast reservoir of energy. Release this energy as a trickle at first, and it will turn into a controlled flood. Find even a small area where you are doing something you sense is true and good. It might be the reading of accurate books, or an attempt to think more from your own original mind. Do more of it. Methods of truth. While there is only one truth, its methods of expression are endless. Like waves washing a rock, truths appear in various shapes and sizes, but all come from the same immense sea. The spoken or written word is one variety, as when hearing, "If you want a rich gift, desire no gifts from men." Observation of human nature is another teacher. Right behaviour can be learned from those who behave badly, for you can also see that wrongness always produces a fearful face. A third teacher is personal defeat. Be sure to welcome what men call defeats as eagerly as you welcome what men call victories, if you wish the victory. But be alert. Accept no teaching just because it is either new or traditional, or because relatives and friends believe it. All roads do not lead to God. Only the road built with direct and personal experience leads you to where you really want to be. Mind and emotion. Your aim is to allow mind and emotion to flow as one, just as two streams come together to form a commanding river. Lack of this harmony results in baffling conflict. Sometimes it is a dishonest feeling which blocks union, as when forcing an appearance of enthusiasm over something the mind finds boring. At other times, the mind may be the deceitful partner. A person may feel it wrong to take advantage of others, but an insecure mind disagrees. The self-split individual is left with self-reproach. When Margaret heard these ideas in class, she stated, "I can never make up my mind about anything. What you said appears to be a solution. Can internal oneness abolish indecision? Succeed in your aim to not be in conflict with yourself, then see whether the problem is still there." Mind power. Let your mind prove its powers to you. Here is one way to do this. Locate a specific problem. Turn every ray of light you have upon it, whether few or many rays. Let them work for you. That makes the light grow brighter. Maybe you do not understand why so many things go wrong for you, but perhaps you are beginning to understand that things go wrong for invented personality, but never for your real nature. Now go on from there. Study sections in this book which explain the difference between artificial personality and your true self. The light will grow, and while walking in the light, the unusual happy events will no longer happen to you. They cease to happen because you now understand why they happened. They happened because you did not really realize you were walking in dark places. But now you know the difference between darkness and light, so there is no more stumbling. Miraculous secret. No human being has ever cried, "What am I going to do?" without the answer being as close as his own willingness to hear it. What you wish to hear can be heard. Does a certain part of you want to awaken from the human nightmare? If so, everything that happens to you is on the side of this yearning portion of your psychic system. Everything means everything, even conditions which seem to work against you. This is a strange but miraculous secret which few people ever discover. The next paragraph will let you in on the secret. If only you will sense the power of disillusionment, do so. Seek out and bring to light all the disillusionment you can find in yourself. Consciousness of shattered dreams is power and honesty and the beginning of the end of disillusionment. We can go nowhere without first seeing our dismay with successes which fail. We can go as far as we want by boldly entering the tunnel of disillusionment, for the entrance reveals the exit. Misfortune can end. Some of us seem to attract trouble, especially trouble with other people. What must we see? First, see that many of your troubles are caused by associating with wrong people. Then you must see that something wrong in you attracts these people, for like attracts like. This is where strict self-examination and self-honesty come in. A misfortune truly understood does not repeat itself. Deeply understanding the cause, you no longer put it into motion, thus preventing the effect. The ability to stop self-damage before it happens is one of the wonders of the esoteric path. A person then sees how he could have stopped earlier misfortunes had he been awake. Many insights contribute to the whole understanding needed to prevent the repetition of misfortune. One insight is to see how the disaster was unconsciously invited by foolish desires. Many a man or woman wakes up after an unhappy involvement with the opposite sex to see the foolishness of his or her desires. Misleading hope. There was once a wealthy nobleman who was able to purchase everything he wanted. He surrounded himself with the most beautiful women of the land, and he dined lavishly. One day a series of events took away all that he had owned and cherished. When trying to recapture his former glory, he failed miserably. So he lived on hope, comforting himself, "Someday I'll be a great man again." But his pain and fear grew so great, he decided to consult a wise man. "Relief will come," counselled the wise man, "only when you abandon all hope. Do you not see that your very hope is your anguish? You see, hope creates the illusion of self-division. To explain this, you falsely believe there is a self and something else which will rescue this self. This is illusion. Life is not divided like this, but hope makes it appear so. So cheerfully abandon hope. You will then see no need to be rescued from anything outside yourself. Your awareness of oneness is total rescue." Mistake and correction. These principles expand an individual's capacity for thinking outside of himself. This unique way of thinking provides clear judgment in both inner matters and in external activities. The person possessing it enjoys an ease and efficiency not known by the self-enclosed man or woman. We can examine a person unable to think outside of himself. So concerned is he with building and defending his fictitious self-images, he has no real interest in anything else. In public, he may appear to have tender concern for a troubled world, but that is simply one of his many deceptive schemes for preserving his flattering illusions about himself. He is imprisoned in his own mind. The preceding paragraph provides a clue for the man who wants to work against that which works against him, self-enclosed thinking. He can become aware of how self-centered thoughts keep him exactly where he really does not wish to be, within the whirling wheel of nervousness and doubt. He can see how his mistake about himself has made his life the secret tragedy that it is. Then he can bravely and cheerfully set about correcting the mistake. Moment of light. One result of self-investigation is the feeling that here at last you have found that mysterious treasure that a certain part of you has always wanted. This treasure comes to those with honest doubt about their goals in life. At first, a man does not know what to do with himself. He then chooses several goals, but finds them both elusive and contradictory. When selecting one of them as his main goal, he still finds himself aimless and dissatisfied. Then, when having courage to see the emptiness of all his self-chosen goals, he experiences a strange kind of shock. This strange shock carries him to the truth at last. He realizes that the only real thing he has to do with himself is to find himself. At that moment of light, all questions about earthly goals fade away. Because his ego is no longer active, he simply earns his living in any way he can, while devoting every possible minute to his supreme goal. More light. Max came right to the point about his problem. Every night there is a new domestic crisis, large or small, it is always there. What can be done with them? It was apparent that Max was still trying to solve the problem instead of solving himself. He was told, working on the exterior expression of the problem is like trying to mop up the kitchen floor while leaving the tap running. You are the tap that spills water all over the floor. Turn it off. Max nodded with the comment, "I suspect that is right, but I need more light." As you say, light is all we need. At times, the guiding light ahead of you in the passage may seem to go out, but it is still there, reappearing as you turn the next corner in the twisting passage. Your part is to keep going until turning the corner. Move towards open spaces. The move away from self-enclosure towards free and open spaces reveals itself at first in small ways. Take a person who accidentally receives a letter intended for a neighbour. Disappointed that it is not his own, he drops it with annoyance and hurries back to his habitual worries. The letter attracts his glance from time to time, causing unconscious guilt and conflict. After hours or days, he may see that the letter reaches the neighbour, but feels resentful at having to do something which returns no reward. But now he is a different kind of man, with a mind operating in a truly positive way. Somewhere along the track, he called a halt to the madness. A new set of responses has been required. Another misdirected letter arrives. One glance and his reaction is relaxed and correct. There is no battle, no waste of energy. Having burst the bag of self-centeredness, he is able to put himself in his neighbour's place. Realising how important the letter might be, it is returned promptly. N. Natural living. You can drive your car uphill for 10 or 50 miles, but you know that sooner or later the road will turn downhill. You are sure of this because you understand the natural laws of geography. You realise that no car can travel uphill or downhill endlessly. They must alternate with each other. Connect this with your daily course. The same law of alternation applies. The wise teachings of Taoism call it the law of yang and yin. Most people do not know this law. A person fails to casually enter the flow which alternates uphill and downhill. Instead, he identifies with uphill. That is, he falsely believes he can survive psychologically only if events match his acquired desires. So he fights ridiculously and vainly to make the road run uphill all the way. But the natural man has an easy road all the way. He does not proceed while hoping for uphill and therefore worrying over downhill. He is not fighting for a fictitious survival. He is above all that. He lives. Naturalness and artificiality. Knowledge comes first. Books and classes help here. Then we must live what we know. This is achieved by letting knowledge banish artificial life. Knowledge states, most of what you do and say is a desperate attempt to make the mythical look real. And by the way, these artificialities you love so much are the very things you complain about, but you don't see your contradiction. By welcoming this knowledge, by not fighting it, we permit its power to banish artificiality. So by losing imaginary life, we live at last in real life. Someone asked, how can knowledge lead to freedom and naturalness in human relations? Simply see. See what, for example? See that you are the slave of anyone you fear. That supplies freedom? Yes, for no man is ever knowingly enslaved. Navigation. I'm tired of not being myself. What can be done? There is just one way to start living from yourself. It is to detect and abolish the imaginary self which now controls your acts and words and feelings. This is why these classes emphasize the need to see through and drop artificial personality. Why does anyone repeat self-punishing behaviour? Because he fails to remember himself. He forgets what happened to him the last time he did what he did. His overpowering craving for pleasurable sensations blocks out awareness of the troubles he attracted the last time. He must become conscious of the whole picture. Something is wrong with our daily navigation. How can we stay on course? Here are 2 guides by which anyone can learn to navigate correctly. Whoever refuses the uncomfortable feeling of being wrong can never be right. Whoever endures the discomfort of feeling himself wrong will become right. Necessary action. A lion was captured and placed in a large yard surrounded by a high fence. He soon became acquainted with the social life of the other lions who had been there a long time. The lions had divided themselves into several clubs, each with its own activities. One group met regularly to hate and slander the captors. Another group met to sing sentimentally about a future jungle having no fences, and a third group met to secretly plot violence against the other groups. Each club tried to pressure the newcomer into joining, but something held him back. His hesitation was caused by observing one particular lion who kept to himself and who seemed to be in deep thought. The newcomer shyly approached the solitary lion and requested an explanation of his apartness. "Join nothing," replied the lion. "Those foolish creatures do everything but the necessary. I'm doing what is essential, so one day I will be out of here. You're welcome to all the facts I have uncovered. But what is this necessary thing you're doing? Listen carefully. I am studying the nature of the fence." Negative thoughts and feelings. Remember these facts about negative thoughts and feelings. They clear up many puzzlements about human nature, revealing people as they really are. This insight gives you calm command in all human relationships. The appearance of one negative word or act in a person indicates the existence of dozens of other negative characteristics. Here is what this means. When seeing an angry man, you also see someone with a depressed, worried, and frightened nature. When observing a sour and scornful woman, you also observe a weak and tense woman. Negative characteristics are like a school of sharks. You may see only one at a time, but dozens of others are swimming below the surface. Take these facts into consideration when entering any human relationship. Then, because you see all of the person standing before you, no one will ever be able to deceive you. Newness in the now. A good and thoughtful king offered a ride in his carriage to a weary traveller on the road. Having been treated badly by evil kings, the traveller hesitantly asked, "Sir, what must I give in return?" The understanding king replied, "Just one thing, your acceptance of the offer. Let the answer to life be as acceptable as it is simple. You will travel fast. People endlessly ask, 'How can I feel well?' The only possible answer is, 'Be well.' But this arouses instant resistance, for it means we must turn away from old and habitual roads, and this frightens our old nature. Don't let habit tell you what to do. Don't let the past control your thinking. Accept the offer of newness in the now. Just accept." New relationships. Marvin wanted to know, how does a changed attitude towards ourselves make change in refinement in our attitudes towards others? When you no longer believe in your own psychic shipwreck, you no longer believe in the permanent shipwreck of others. This creates a new relationship with others. Among other victories, you're no longer bothered by their unwise or irritating behaviour. Having found inner liberty for yourself, you know it is possible for them also, if they want it deeply enough. You are like a man who makes it to shore after leaving a sinking ship. You sight others clinging to bits of the broken ship, knowing they can also reach the shore if only they will look in the right direction. New thinking. An individual does not have dozens of problems. He has only one fundamental problem. Realizing this is like leaping over a high fence that blocked our path. What is it? It is the illusion that ordinary thinking can solve problems. Ordinary thought, conditioned thought, cannot solve problems because it is the very cause of problems. Habitual thinking, frozen thinking, cannot teach us anything new, any more than a polar bear can teach anything about tropical bananas. It is strange how we fail to see this. Furiously and frantically, we battle for years in an attempt to think our way out, but new walls appear at every turn. A totally new way of thinking is required. This thinking does not look to conditioned memory for an answer. Instead, The mind waits quietly for something higher than memory to speak. The resulting answer solves all problems. New view. Suppose you're on the 3rd floor of a 10-story building. You've never gone above this level. Then you meet someone from the 10th floor who describes the higher view from up there. You may have difficulty understanding what he is talking about. Then you ascend to the 10th floor and look out of the window. Your own vision reveals what it is all about. All our questions are finally answered. Most answers turn out to be utterly different from what our habitual thinking imagined they would be. We may have wondered why esotericism says so little about comfort and sympathy. We see why. It is because there is something 1,000 times better than comfort. It is the disturbing but liberating truth about ourselves. We may have been puzzled at the endless repetition of troubles. We solved the mystery. We caused our own problems by not seeing the difference between mechanical thinking and higher perception. Noble courage. Ralph spoke up for the entire class. We've given ourselves the project of ending wrong reactions. Please give us a place to work. Have you ever observed the resulting thrill when someone says he likes or appreciates you? Do not respond wrongly to that feeling. You may assume it tells you who you are. For example, that you're indeed a friendly and worthy person. You have wrongly let that feeling reinforce your flattering self-images. Instead of falling victim to false reactions, let them fall on your wish to understand what they are all about. Try to see how you believe what you prefer to believe, how you choose the elation of flattery over facing your actual condition. That is noble courage. Noble necessity. An apple seed found itself resting on the shady side of a large rock. It felt comfortable and secure in its familiar surroundings. One morning, a swift wind suddenly picked up the seed and carried it away. After whirling round strange skies for a while, the seed came down in a field of rich earth. At first, the seed felt frightened and insecure. While yearning for its former familiar surroundings, it wondered why the wind had treated it so harshly. Then the seed noticed something about itself. It saw that it was changing, growing, becoming something far greater than it had been before. Finally, the seed understood what had happened to it. It saw the noble necessity for leaving the old place to enter this new land of greater development. It also realized that the wind was a friendly force after all. Non-action. For a while, instead of thinking of things you must do for self-progress, think of what you must not do. We can see what is involved here. A person usually has a long mental list of actions he wants to take, but forgets that not doing is also a form of doing. In fact, esoteric non-action is a special kind of creative action. Think about it. How would a man's day be different if he did not try to force his way through it? By not forcing anything, he would avoid the tension and strife that always accompanies forcing. Forcing falls away when we clearly see it as a wrong move. We need only be conscious that anything gained by either subtle or violent force becomes just another chain. Go into non-action. Non-interference. A seeker asked, "What do I fear?" You fear to dismiss your answer, for you believe there may be no other answer to replace it. You would rather be wrong than empty. This fear terrorizes most people. I will help you. Dismiss your answer. Let the emptiness be there. Remain right in the center of it with an awareness of how it shakes you. Then, someday, you may return here. When meeting, we will not need to say a word. We will just smile at each other. Whole life is perfectly capable of answering every question, providing our habitual nature does not try to help. An attempt to help only interferes with the natural revelation. It is like pushing on a walking man in an attempt to help him move forward. The mind asking the question cannot answer it. Only a higher mind can do so, which requires that we cease to push this way and that in an attempt to move towards an answer. So stay clear. Do not interfere. This is the great secret taught by Taoism. Let whole life do what it knows how to do. Nothing prevents you. Entering the classroom, a teacher wrote 5 separate sentences on the blackboard. Nothing prevents you from comprehending everything you need to comprehend. Nothing stands in the way of your possession of a carefree spirit. Nothing blocks your ability to end a mistake-making way of life. Nothing obstructs your view of the kingdom you have always wanted to inherit. Nothing prevents you from attaining a calm confidence that no worldly event can shake. After studying the blackboard for a while, a student asked the teacher, "What prevents us from understanding these messages?" Nothing prevents you from understanding these messages.